All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Titus. I'm the VP of Go-to-Market at Civic, and I'm the host of the Tokenized Identity podcast. Now, this is a show where we discuss the latest and greatest happening in the intersection of digital identity and blockchain. Now, if you haven't already, please hit that like button, use the subscribe button on YouTube, follow us on X, on LinkedIn, or your favorite podcasting platform. Stay up to date with what we're doing and with the latest episodes. It helps us grow. Now, before we begin, a little bit about Civic. So, we're a digital identity platform that provides builders in the Web2 and Web3 spaces with the tools to prevent things like bot attacks, civil attacks, to enforce identity-related restrictions by tokenizing stuff like a captcha test or uniqueness test or identity verifications, or even compliance rules on chain while preserving user privacy. Now, today in this episode, we're going to talk about the state of DAOs, quadratic voting, poll, and beyond. And we're going to talk about how to cultivate better communities with a true Solana OG. So I want to welcome Dean from Dean's List to the pod. Hi, Dean. Please introduce yourself to the audience, and then we'll jump in.
Hi, Titus. Great to be here. Thank you for having me on the show. Also, a very big fan of Civic. You and your team have been unsung heroes when it comes to governance in Solana. So really big fan of everything you and your team do. I noticed that my name has been updated to Dean Pappas Dean's List. So Dean's List is one of the DAOs I'm part of. Our focus is on giving feedback to these sorely needed protocols in Web3. More users, more intelligent usage, and trying to figure out how they can become better. And then a lot of my background is in governance in general. So I work on the Realms team. I work with Dean's List, Athens DAO. It's a conference we host in Athens every year for governance. Island Dao recently. Just a lot of things with DAO at the end of the name. I'm part of on Solana.
Awesome. So speaking of Island Dao, let's start off with something fun. How was it? Looked amazing in the video recaps. Can you tell us what the kind of the highlights from it?
Yeah. Well, the tan came from Island Dao, so that's something you can look forward to if you go to an Island Dao. But yeah, the highlights, I think, on the building side, outside of the fact that we had a lot of fun, right? You can see the videos, you can see that fun's easy to have on an island, but the things that came out of it, the highlight for me has to be Symmetry. So Symmetry is a protocol that lets people make baskets, portfolios that others can trade, and they automatically rebalance. It's like make your own ETF, for example. And they've just created an integration with Realms, so governance again. And DAOs will be able to manage their treasury using a Symmetry basket. So that was the highlight. That and the jet skiing were probably the highlights of Island Dao.
Well, I can given the jet skiing piece. I think I want to hear more about Symmetry. I think that's a great idea. I think the blockchain space, crypto space, token space is in dire need of such tools. I don't know if you followed what the Index Co-op did back on the ETH space. They did some kind of baskets early on. I was kind of looking at Solana, it's hey, are we going to see something on Solana as well? And it looks like we are.
Yes, and it's something that's needed across all governance, all of the crypto space, because today, when a DAO wants to do some sort of swap or asset management, the best solution until now, the most common solution, is having a delegate that you send the funds to, right? So we have decentralized, trustless, and all of a sudden, hey, let's have a centralized trust, super high trust moment where we send, whatever amount of money. Sometimes people are sending millions to one person's wallet. They execute the swap and they send it back. So that's the worst possible way to do treasury management, which is also the most common. Then a leg up from that is a multisig, where we can do the swap within a multisig. We all have to sign off on the swap. So let's say, you and I and Becca and Nancy before, we've got a 3 of 4 multisig, right? And you see an opportunity for us to get some bonk at a cheap price. The only way we can execute that is if 3 of us are right there with you at the same time, accessible on our, computers, ledgers, whatever, and executing that swap. Doesn't happen usually. It's like very cumbersome to get. And as a DAO grows, that just becomes impossible. It's hard enough with 3 or 4. Imagine if you have a DAO of hundreds, thousands of people. So that's the second leg up. After that is this idea behind the delegate account. You can use Mango on Realms. And that's where we say, you know what, Titus is a trusted guy. We're going to give him a Mango account and we're going to fund it. You then can do whatever trades you want within the Mango account. And the catch is the only withdrawal you can do is back to the DAO. We can even initiate the withdrawal ourselves without you. Say you go rogue. We see you doing some weird trades. You can say, hey, stop him. Claw back the funds. So that's the third. Again, these are like increasingly better, but less and less used, just because the knowledge of the tools and also the amount of experience somebody has to have becomes harder and harder, unlikely. And at the top now, the newest thing is Symmetry, which in my current perspective and viewpoint of DAOs, that's the most decentralized, because going back to this multisig of me, you, Becca, Nancy, what we do together is say, look, let's get some exposure to these. And we think we should have 20% in Bonk and 40% in Civic coin and the rest in Dean token. Okay, we set those up, we vote on it, it's done. After that, it's automatically rebalancing. We're earning DeFi yield as well. This is something you can do with Symmetry. So yeah, that's the best one. If we get together, we can remove and change the basket. So yeah, Island Dao had a lot of cool stuff come. There were also some, funnier, like new ideas to do things like token mints that came out. Something was called Gourd Collective. So yeah, all in all, I'm very bullish on these events that Solana is really pioneering. Mountain DAO is the first example, where you have a month-long co-working experience, co-working retreat. And the month-long duration really matters because it gives people enough time to kind of really gel, really get into the flow of things. You're not rushing on conversations. Traditionally, you go to a break point, you go to one of these conferences, Token 2049, 3-4 days. It's a sprint, and you've only got 10 minutes with each person. Whereas here with these month-long retreats, you have a lot of time to sit down, build, share, come back 2 days later and say, I had a dream about something you said the other day. Let's talk about it some more. So it was a big success, and we've already announced that Island Dao, the next iteration of Island Dao, is going to happen September 25th to October 25th in Koh Samui at Villa Solana. We'll be sharing an application probably within the next 48 hours. So, if you weren't able to come to the first one, I hope you'll come to the next one.
Yeah, that's exciting. I bet like a lot of people will be lining up for that one as well. Awesome. So besides Island DAO, what else are you working on? What's new with Dean's List?
Yeah, so Dean's List specifically, we're always working on feedback for other projects. So we're wrapping up a hackathon sprint that we've done for Coliseum. And in that, we are also now working on giving feedback for Island DAO. Like there were members of Dean's List who came to Island DAO. We want to get their impressions of how it could be done better. And we're now trying out new models of governance. We're testing out MetaDAO, which is a futarchy platform. And we just had a proposal to say the people who have the most governance, the top 5 governance holders of our DAO, we will comp their trip to Thailand DAO. So flights and accommodation will be handled by the DAO if at the end of our campaign, you're one of the top 5 governance holders. And it's exciting because it becomes something very similar to the way like Monkey DAO or Super Team, a lot of these ones that have IRL connection to their on-chain presence. We looked at that. It's great inspiration. So yeah, if you're interested in becoming a DAO member and getting a comped stay at Thailand DAO, join the DAO.
Yeah, that's a really cool incentive to have people like fight to those five spots, right?
Yeah, and it's a way for people to learn about governance. So, you can get 1 million tokens or something, but then you'll see that somebody else has only, bought 500,000 tokens, yet has 2 million governance power. How's that possible? It's because they've locked it. We use this thing in Realms. It's called a VSR plugin, and it gives a multiplier on your voting power based on the duration of locking. This is one of the many things somebody can do if they set up a DAO from scratch on Realms. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about with this campaign, is that people are going to be incentivized to learn more about how governance works, get more involved. And really, there's a magic to meeting the people, meeting the PFPs, the monkeys that we interact with every day, to meet them in real life. So really, Titus, I hope you'll look into it, because it would be cool to hang out in Thailand.
Hey, I think between Singapore and going to the US and going to Thailand, I need to figure out my travel plans for the end of the year for sure. All these conferences. Yeah, definitely doing Breakpoint, definitely doing Token 2049, pretty open between that and like mid-October I'll be in San Francisco for some like team offsite stuff as well. So yeah, a little bit all over the place. But coming back to DAOs. So, I mean, you mentioned this kind of state, like locking in and multiplying. What other developments are you most excited about in the realm of DAOs on Solana?
Yeah, there's a lot of things to be bullish on. I'm a governance nut, so obviously I was very excited about quadratic voting, which Civic brought forward. And I think we should, we'll obviously dive into that in a bit. Super new. Came out today is Dialect's Blinks, which allow people to be able to vote directly within Twitter. So that's very exciting. Soon we're going to have Token 2022 support. So Token Extensions, the new token program on Solana, huge design space. And there's nothing, I think, it really lends itself towards DAOs because of things you can do that, previously you couldn't. So yeah, there's a lot to be excited about in the DAO space on Solana.
So let's park that SPL 2022 because I want to talk about that a little bit more later. Let's talk about quadratic voting. Like, why is it better? How does it work? Explain it to people that don't really know a lot about it, because like obviously we've kind of worked together on this. So yeah, want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so quadratic voting isn't a new concept. It's existed. It's just the implementation wasn't possible on other chains like it is on Solana with the help of Civic. And the dream there is that you have a mathematical superiority in the way you look at token holdings and how much power you give to them as voters. So traditionally, you have a linear relationship. You have one token, you have one vote. You have two tokens, you have two votes. You have 1,000 tokens, you have 1,000 votes. And that makes concentrated control, centralized control, problem. So quadratic voting has been an idea where, as you get more and more voting power in one wallet, in one address, that one address, no longer has this linear increase in voting power. So one vote, sure, one token is one vote, but then
even
9 tokens is 3. It's so you go in at 100 tokens is 10 votes, and so on and so forth. So that deals with the whale problem, but you've got this one part that's always eluded everyone trying to make quadratic voting a reality, which is I'll just spread my tokens across a lot of wallets, and then we're back where we started, where the rich person, the concentrated holding, has a centralized influence on the DAO by virtue of the fact that they've made multiple wallets. That's where Civic comes in. And with this new integration, for somebody to launch a quadratic voting DAO, they also need to apply Civic ID, Civic key. And the current implementation that I've been testing out is one where we use a proof of uniqueness to make sure that that voter only has one address that they're interacting with the governance with. That way, they can't go and make a second and a third we definitively know that the person voting here is one unique person.
And I think that that's a great point. And I think there's been a problem in the blockchain space altogether. Like, how do you ensure that you have one person, one wallet for most things that you're doing? It's like we're like, instead of a flurry of bots or some like trying to Sybil, you just have like this assurance that you have one person, one wallet. And for voting, even more so, because like sometimes you're managing, to your point, I think millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars in treasury and decisions on that. And just if the scammer or the like controlling major wallet holder ends up pushing the decision to like 51%, like then you just drained the DAO at that point, because like the DAO voted, whereas actually just one person voted with what are the 50,000 wallets or whatever they end up spinning up.
And yeah, and it happens. Like, this isn't the realm of fantasy. This happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't remember exactly the names of them, but it doesn't matter. But like it does happen. So for any DAO member or leader, like this is super important to think about. It's kind of like after the fact, it's very hard to do anything about it. So it's better to shore it up. I think it's all that kind of cybersecurity conversations shouldn't be happening just at like compiler level and at like how you're writing your code, but like how do you think about the logic of who has access to what you've built, and then what they can do with that access. I think those two pieces are critical when you're designing these kind of decentralized groups.
Absolutely, and again, plugging Civic here, proof of uniqueness is only one of the options. You could go and require KYC for somebody to be interacting with the DAO. So, this is a very forward-thinking solution that inevitably, as DAOs become more and more popular, we're going to start seeing these problems only solved with this solution. So if I were a betting man, which I am, I would say that, this implementation, quadratic voting, and Civic are going to be highlights of DAOs over the next few years.
So gating that for sure makes total sense with, I make sure one person, one wallet. But like when setting the quadratic configuration, what's kind of the best practice for people to think about that? How do you decide when the curve diminishes of the impact of the next vote in the power?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, what we've done is we've gone with the default that the Civic team set up, which was that pure quadratic. The only thing you really need to balance with that I've seen so far is with quorum, because you're now changing the amount of voting power connected to the token availability. So traditionally what we say is, okay, there's 1 billion tokens. We want, let's say, 10% quorum. We want 10% of those billion tokens to be present in voting. When we look at those votes, it's 100 million that we're going to need to see voting for us to say quorum has been achieved. But with quadratic voting, it's not 100. You're not going to get 100 million votes. You're going to get less votes. So you need to be understanding how circulating supply and participation come together to create a quorum that's achievable. So the most important thing, I think, when somebody's looking at activating the first quadratic DAO is really being super forgiving on the quorum side. Make it super low. That way you start to understand who are your participants, because somebody could have a lot of tokens, not be voting, right? If they're not present, that's going to hurt your quorum. So yeah, that would be the first one I would focus on. And I think when trying to decide, is quadratic for me, you really first start with a question around whale voting, plutocracy, things like that, which are a lot more philosophical, more than they are necessarily business. You could also have the problem that you don't want somebody to have a centralized control. Again, that's more of a philosophical thing, I think. That's when you should be like, I should definitely use this. Another part is on the utility of your voting. That's where poll comes in. For poll, the utility is polling. So that's why it makes sense for us to be using quadratic voting, because we want to protect the integrity of that poll. We want to know that it's not being influenced by a whale, that we have unique people giving their input.
But yeah, tell us more about Pole. Like we're excited about the launch. Like, tell us the details.
Yeah. So earlier I mentioned that I'm a governance nut. I like trying new things. Somebody needed to take the first step and try this new implementation. So kind of zoomed out and said, what would the best utility be for a token? What kind of DAO wants this? And I think polling is the easiest one I can see that, you can be pretty fast in explaining to people, where you need to protect the integrity of the data that you're collecting. Right now, if somebody hosts a poll on Twitter, you have no idea what kind of bot farm has gotten involved. That changes the integrity of the poll. With quadratic voting with Civic, you now have a really high level of certainty over the results you have. You could even host presidential elections now with Civic and Say Dialect and Blinks and all of these things combined. People could be voting for something super serious, knowing that this is a unique person, this is a KYC person, they don't have too much concentration of power, and that's exciting. That this is something you can explain to somebody that's not in Web3, and they'll get it. Like, they'll understand why quadratic voting makes sense.
Yeah, I think I mean there's a long way to go until this gets used beyond the Web3 space. Unfortunately, I think there's like still places where there's like paper ballots being counted manually with like pen and paper tallies and all that fun stuff, and like it takes a week or two or three, even if there's disputes, to figure out like, hey, what are the results of this process? But I think in the case of DAOs, you don't really have that luxury of time. So let's kind of like look at what are kind of the most well-run DAOs in your opinion. Any highlights, what they're doing right, what is kind of some best practices in that space beyond kind of implementing this quadratic voting piece that would make sense for like pushing off whale influence or scammer influence?
Yeah, so I think Poll is a great example, where here you have a very good match behind the technology with the utility. So right now, super in the beginning of things, the Treasury holds over 90% of the supply. The idea is to vote out that supply, connect it to things that will move forward our polling technology, that platform. So if somebody is passionate about giving their opinion and trying to think about innovative ways we can take blockchain data and package it up for polls, Poll DAO is a great one for somebody to join. Then if you've got something a little bit more mature, I think Mango is a good example. So many integrations and tools that you can update your experience with their trading platform. You can list a token through DAO. You can create a perp through DAO. Like, you can do a lot of things using realms explicitly because the Mango team has created that entrance for somebody with their token. You should hold 100,000 Mango. That way you can get any any token listed on the Mango exchange. I think Pith is a great example. Jito is a great example. Drift is a great example. Tensor is a great example. Dean's List is a great example. What's useful is that you can go to Realms, you can see all of those DAOs. You can also, there's a bot on Twitter which posts every single DAO proposal in real time. So that's a great way for you to be like, okay, what are people doing? I follow those notifications religiously. My favorite new experiment in DAOs is called Greed. I don't know if you know about the Greed experiment.
Is that Yoshi's project?
That's Vashi's experiment, where the soul was locked onto a validator, and it doesn't unlock until September. Well, if you happen to have interacted with Greed and you happen to have your soul locked on a validator, you can go onto Realms, and you need to vote, and you need to convince another 14 DAO members to unlock your soul today. If you really don't want to wait until September to get that locked soul, you can convince 14 other people, and unlock it. And I think it's pretty cool. Like what I love that Vashi has done is kind of help nudge people into education. Not everybody sees it with that kind of viewpoint, but that's definitely one of the most authentic attempts at a DAO that's out there.
Yeah, that's a really cool project I've been following since I think I met him at the Hacker House in New York, and he was telling me about it. Like, interesting social experiment.
Metaplex is another example. They they update their programs on chain. They have a grants program now that's voted on chain as well. Really, I'm doing the DAO space injustice because we do happen to have a lot of understated but awesome DAOs. They're large in the amount of money they hold. They're large in what they do, but some of the innovation that they're coming up with, dual finance, issuing options all through realms, through DAO. That's really cool. I didn't dive into options and understand how flexible they are as instruments for us to do, token distribution and incentivization until dual finance came and started using realms for it. So, I've had some time to also be on the DAO scene on Ethereum, and really the level of innovation, experimentation that's happening on Solana is completely different. Like we're in outer space compared to some of these other more Neanderthal-like attempts. Like it's wild what you're able to do on Solana.
Yeah, I remember going in some of those old forums and just like kind of doing those old style of voting. Like this feels like DAO 2.0 for sure. Cool. And like just one thing I want to ask before we kind of round out that best practices and whatnot. We noticed you started working with the Bonk team, like in the memes coin space, and what can you tell us about that work that you're doing?
Yeah, so Bonk continues to be at the they always know to go where the puck is going, right? And the team have been fantastic to work with. They currently work with Armada for token locking. So if you have Bonk, you should definitely be using Bonk rewards. You lock your token, you're going to be receiving more Bonk. But how can you also vote with it if it's locked? So we've created a custom voting experience where you can vote both with the locked Bonk and your unlocked Bonk on a dedicated domain, bonkdao.com. So I'm excited about how they're going to interact with the community. They have a huge treasury. It's exciting to see what kind of things a meme token community can do with the treasury they have. Usually that treasury should be in the underlying token. With the case of Bonk, that they've been so successful, they have a lot of assets to play with. But like when you look at Pole as like a different version of like a meme coin-esque experiment, it's the idea that you have this treasury of token to vote on how it's allocated. So I think with meme coins, you want to see that there is something in the treasury that you would be able to vote on. Like there's no point in having a DAO with an empty treasury other than polling. And what you're polling there is a little soft governance-y, right? It's like, should we, change our logo to this, or like those things that are a little softer. Not a very big fan of. I wouldn't be, I would focus more on the ones where they have something that you can vote on, and then expect an instruction to trigger. So, from the meme coin area, Bonk, Pole. I think that there's a few others that have played with it, and we're seeing now if they're going to revamp it. Guac is an example. Motai is an example. There's a few that I'm not sure if they would define themselves as memes or not. Sometimes it's kind of like, why would you call us a meme? We're a serious project. Hey, serious projects can be memes. But those are the ones that I know are okay with being identified as meme coins.
Yeah, for sure. It's always like that line, like when do you embrace the fact that you've become a meme coin or not? At that point, no, for sure. All right, so kind of switching gears, I know you mentioned that Highland Dao is in the works. That's close to breakpoint. Are you going to be a breakpoint?
Yes, 100%. 100%. I'm looking
Oh,
forward to it. I'm going to try to be there early on to also go to the Network State Conference that Balaji pioneered at last breakpoint. So if anybody out there is a governance nut, I would definitely recommend that you try to get to Singapore a few days early to enjoy that.
well, I'll be for sure a few days early. I'll check it out.
Sorry, I'm confusing events. Theirs is 2 days later. So September
no.
22nd is Network State. September 18th is a staking event called Stake Point, run by
Yes.
Marinade. That was the one I'm also interested in going to. So yeah, a lot of fun events to go to.
Yeah, and there's also Token 2049 happening within that space. There's Formula One happening. Lots of things happening in Singapore that weekend. Pretty cool stuff. Like from the breakpoint stuff, what are you most excited about? What are the things that you're looking forward to at that conference?
It has to be token extensions. And, we touched on it a bit before, but it's so new. It's a place that we just need so much more experimentation on. So I'm looking forward to, the conversations, the ideas, seeing what people have been building. I think that is very exciting. There's new stuff coming out every day. Again, today, Say Dialect with Blink, their Blinks program where you have actions embedded into Twitter. It's a game changer. When it comes to polling, that could be a better use of Twitter polls. Instead of having Twitter polls, you'll have a embedded poll that's on chain using Civic ID. There's a lot. So yeah, really excited for Breakpoint. I think this could be the most important one ever.
Yeah, and just I think one thing to note on the SPL like 2022, like we're excited to see like more and more platforms adopt that standard, and like how we can now insert like transfer hooks in there, like builders can actually build more logic that's more kind of building blocks as opposed to coding stuff from scratch as it was before. So, but like I think the goal is for more and more platforms to fully support these token extensions, because like if they ignore them, then no one wins.
Absolutely. No, and I like the fact that Civic has already made a transfer hook integration. So that's one of the things I look forward to seeing some experimentation with.
Yeah, and like, look, I'm going to use this platform to call out like anyone who's building any kind of tool, any kind of infra or DEX, like a Realms type of platform. Like, come to us. Like, we are happy to work with you to get this like transfer hook piece put together, like walk through UX, walk through UI, help like co-create together on this, like build it together, figure it out. Because like with adoption, we all win in this space.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So we are almost at time. There is one audience question that came up. It's about your Rubik's cubes behind you, Dean. That those are all solved. I feel like, yeah, right. What's the story there?
Yeah, I like puzzles. So yes, those all have been solved. I have this thing where if there's a Rubik's cube around, it needs to be in this solved form. Yeah. Fastest time is around 42 seconds. And I can do the 2x2, I can do the 3x3 and the 5x5. I hope to work on the 7x7 soon.
It's always humbling to be in presence of such people that can do that. I can't say I've ever solved a Rubik's cube.
I can teach you. If you give me half an hour, I can put you on the right path. It's just like everything. It's if you know what your goal is and you can look at it as a map, you know how to follow the map to success.
Hey, I learned how to juggle at some point, and I thought that was impossible. So, yeah, I'm open to it.
Yeah. Cool. So that's the deal. When we go to breakpoint, I'll show you how to do the cube. You'll show me how to juggle. Hopefully, we can get something done in 30 minutes.
All right. I need 3 tennis balls and yeah, probably 30, 40 minutes max. as well. We teach each other.
Excellent.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions from the audience, then one last thing before we wrap up. So, what is one thing you want the viewers to leave with? Like, what should they check out? What announcements? What things are you like putting out there? And where can people follow you for that?
Yeah, best place to follow me is on Twitter. I've been retweeting, and I think Civic's done a great job. Thank you so much for sharing what I do and supporting. Try out the tools, right? Like at this point, a lot of it has been built. I try to think about like if you could go back to the ancient times, like I'm lucky I'm in Greece. I can see the Acropolis. If they had what we are playing with today, I think they would have a hard time trying to figure out government, just because the design space now is wide open. You can do things you could never have thought of before. With a decentralized ledger and the fact that now we can validate people, like it. You can simulate the Agora where I could see you, I could validate that you are you, thanks to Civic. So yeah, we've got the right tools. We need more experimentation. You don't need to be a developer. I'm not a developer. All of these things are no code at this point. People like Daniel Kelleher on the Civic team, unsung hero in governance. Like the entire Realms team loves him. So really, teams like Realms and Civic have already done the hard work, and now we need you to come and experiment with us.
Awesome. Yeah, big shout out to Dan, our VP of Engineering. And yeah, guys, like, look, try it out. Don't be afraid of the kind of biometric stuff. Like, it's all encrypted. Like, no one keeps your face somewhere stored because like that's not how this works. It's all transformed into data that's like encrypted, and it's like related to the keys connected to your wallet. So like it's all kind of easy to understand and
It's safe.
Safe. That's the word. That's safe. Like just that, because I've been in all these like identity spaces and like people talking about like, oh, how you should never collect biometrics. Like, well, there's a way to collect them and not store them. Only store the result of that output in a way that like you can then mathematically match it, but not be usable by a scammer. So and it's all connected to signatures and wallets. I won't go into the details of that. But anyway, to wrap up, thank you for joining. Thank you, Dean. Thank you for the partnership. And then once again, if you haven't like hit the like button, subscribe button, follow us on X, LinkedIn, podcasting platforms. Stay up to date with what we're doing here. We have more episodes coming up this summer, leading up to Breakpoint, to all these like nice conferences. And yeah, catch us at ECC, catch us at the Hacker House in London, and check out civic.com for like more background on what we do, and our docs.civic.com if you want to implement, if you're a builder, even if you're not a developer. Like ChatGPT does wonders nowadays just to get you started. So yeah, over and out. Thank you.
Thank you, Titus. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to people coming also to join Dean's List, where we can help you on your journey to start earning and experimenting with other power users and people who are really passionate about what we're doing.
Awesome. Well, that being said, have a good one, everyone.